religiously and put on 30 pounds in almost 3 months. And so that really taught me the ability of how easy it is to manipulate your body if you give it the right information, if you give it the right inputs, to be able to dictate and tell it what to do. There's a real science to putting all these pieces together. So you kind of take the hybrid of the experience at 16 and the experience going into college. Those are the two things that really put me on this path of this is really what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. I'm highly, highly invested. And as I got older and kind of moved out of my, I never went to the pros. So I'll spare you that suspense. But so I kind of fell into business and then got into entrepreneurship. And so for me, I saw a really strong correlation between athletes and entrepreneurs. And so I felt like there was an opportunity here as my business started to develop to really work with high level entrepreneurs who I felt spend a lot of time building their wealth and success at the expense of their health and wellness. And so while people start to accumulate, the wealth that they're looking for and the homes and the cars and all the things they want, they're not able to enjoy it at a level that they could potentially because of the fact that they don't have their health and their health. Something had to sacrifice for them to get to that certain level. And so now I find myself coaching and working with a lot of clients, teaching them how to integrate health and wellness programs into their existing infrastructure in a way that, really teaches you a really nice cadence of finding that the best output for each part of that formula, like getting your diet perfect and understanding and knowing your body and how your body responds to certain foods, getting your training dialed in, very specific for whatever your goals are that you're trying to look for, whether it's trying to build muscle, lean down, burn fat, lose weight, increase mobility, range of motion, get out of pain, whatever it might be for you. There's a real specific science to how you put and program specifically things together. Then there's lots of like rest and recovery protocols, which is a real key component to getting into great health and great shape. It's not always about putting your foot on the gas and going 100 miles an hour. You got to learn how to feather back or throttle back just a little bit and know when to push and when to pull back. There's a real science to that as well. Supplementation, blood work analysis, hormone replacement therapy, all of these things are actually critical components to the overall process of getting healthy because you could look like a 10, but if you feel like a 2, none of it really matters. So there's a lot of deep dive components that are built into the programs that I
Isn't that
that I
hard to
work.
look like a 10 and feel like a 2? Isn't that hard to do?
Not necessarily. Not
Really?
necessarily. I mean,
Here's
look, it could maybe harder for. I get where you're going with that. It could be difficult, but there are people out there who do look like. Let's put it for this way: a lot of the people that most general population look up to, I guess, is really where that really applies, right? Like a lot of fitness influencers, people we follow on social media, there's a lot of people on there that look like 10s that feel like 2s because they're pushing their body in extreme ways. And a lot of times it's not there's the unhealthy extreme on the other side of that spectrum,
Let's talk
right?
about that extreme. That's one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about because what I notice more than anything when I talk to people about health and wellness is I notice that there's a consistent bad habit around a couple of different areas. I'm wondering if you see this and if you could speak to this, but most of the people that I see that think that they're trying to keep track of their weight or think that they're trying to get in better shape, they do it in extreme ways. So they starve themselves in the morning because they heard fasting was good.
Mhm.
Then they get to the point where they freak out and eat something. They're vastly under eating protein generally. And then when they go work out, they're doing 90 minutes on the Stairmaster and trying to
Mhm.
figure out, or going to Orange Theory and trying to figure out why their body isn't taking shape. Did I touch on enough points there that you can debunk?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot, and they're all independent, but they're also correlated, right? I mean, the key with this stuff is that there's no one rule of thumb that's going to work for everybody. There's so many nuances to each different approach to health and fitness, whether it's diet, training, whatever it might be, even hormone replacement therapy, that is very, very specific to each individual. And you have to understand and know your body, and you have to understand and know you have to have a high level of self-awareness to know what are your goals, what are your physical limitations and capabilities. Like there's so many elements there that have to be considered. And that's why working with a coach is important because, for someone like me, when I get involved with my clients, I mean, we're in bed together. We're in bed together deep. I'm understanding every single thing. I have my finger on the pulse of everything that's going on a moment to moment basis of every single day, because what I'm trying to understand is how do you run your day? I'm not just looking to understand, are you hitting your meal plan, or did you check the box on your workout today? I'm trying to understand, like, how crazy is work right now? Like, what's going on with the kids at home? Are you getting enough sleep? Do you have you been running hard with a lot of travel for work and then back home again, like a lot of events back and forth? I mean, how old are you? Like, are you in menopause, perimenopause? Is your
So let's
testosterone? So
dig
there's.
let's dig to directly to what's useful on to the general person on this
Mhm.
call. I was doing 90 minutes on the Stairmaster. I was trying to not eat as much as I possibly could, restricting as much as I could when I met you.
Yep.
And I was probably training or trying to be skinny instead of strong. Do you generally see that people are making mistakes in those areas? And maybe
Yeah.
you could just talk about how you coached me on that.
Yeah, well, I think most people are under eating protein, right? Protein is absolute the king macronutrient. So most people are under protein and they're overdoing it too much with their cardio. So what happens in that process is that they're losing a tremendous amount of muscle, and in that process, you're making your body less metabolically efficient, because muscle is the most expensive thing on the body. So when you have more muscle on your body, your metabolism will work harder to try to support and hold on to that muscle tissue. When you start to lose muscle, the body naturally starts to pare down its energy systems to try to go into this preservation mode. So your body is almost trying to like hold on to more body fat because it recognizes there's not enough calories coming in. We don't have enough muscle tissue on the body. So we got to try to put this body into preservation mode. It's a very primal sort of instinct that the body starts to react and respond to. And so you'll see these patterns of people going into massive calorie deficits and pushing their cardio way too hard. So they start to burn tons of muscle. They also start to elevate cortisol, which is the stress hormone in the body. And cortisol has massive downstream negative effects of also accelerating that fat protocol where the body wants to hold on to more fat. It recognizes a stress response where the increase in body fat will help protect the body from a nature's perspective. So yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that. I mean, that's a massive, I think, issue in general. A lot of the clients that I work with, my client base runs from late 30s all the way to like mid 60s, and even my clients in their 50s and 60s are all strength training. And I make sure that they're sticking to the rule of thumb of 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight, which we're trying to go after. But they're all strength training, and cardio is a little bit different for each individual. Some people are doing a little bit more, some people are doing a little bit less, but it's certainly not the overwhelming majority of their program is not doing cardio at all. It's mostly strength training and prioritizing their nutrition to make sure they're getting sufficient amount of calories, and but primarily making sure that they're hitting their protein target.
Yeah. So instead of doing a bunch of cardio or going to Orange Theory or something like that, generally, what do you see that you have to make adjustments for people and the misconceptions that they have about managing their own weight? What are some of the general things that you push people
Uh,
towards that's a better use of time?
Outside of nutrition and outside of cardio, or are you
Yeah.
saying from a nutrition perspective?
Well, yeah. So if I was doing 90 minutes on the bike, remember you're like, stop riding the bike. And I
Yeah.
was like, it's the only thing I'm doing that I feel like is contributing to my health. And I thought that that was a good idea. And you pushed me personally towards getting off of the bike more. And what did you push me towards?
Yeah, it was more like, so from a cardio perspective, doing short interval hit bursts are more effective in terms of, so instead of doing 90 minutes, we're talking 20-minute interval sessions where you're doing 30 seconds hard, 30 seconds recovery, whether it be a treadmill if you can run, whether it be an Aerodyne or assault bike, whether it be a rowing machine, those a stairmaster, whatever it might be, something to get you into that effective high intensity recovery zone of pushing the heart rate hard and then getting into this recovery, because that type of short intensity burst will set your body up for a longer duration of fat metabolism over the course of a 2 to 3 hour period. Because when you're taking your heart rate really, really high and then bringing the heart rate back down again really low, it creates this oxygen return rate confusion for the body, where the body is trying to regulate the oxygen. And so if it can't figure out if we need to be high or we need to be low, it takes about 2 to 3 hours for that body to return that oxygen level back to normalcy once you've created that fluctuation, that high degree of variance between the high heart rate and the low heart rate. So doing a short 20-minute interval will give you a much longer extended cardio fat metabolism burn versus doing a 90-minute cardio session that's a little bit more steady state and doesn't really push those heart rate variabilities in a way that would cause you to have extended cases of fat metabolism.
And for someone putting together a plan for themselves, resistance training, right? So a lot of people will put resistance training kind of either at the beginning or the end of a mostly cardio session. Just for the average person on this call, how often should somebody be resistance training and how important
Yeah,
is that?
I mean, I think the minimum for someone to be resistance training would be 3 days a week. 3 days a week would be the minimum amount of effective dose for the week. Hitting a training split where you might hit, for the average person, you might hit a full upper body workout twice a week and split it up into different body groups, and then hit a lower body session once a week. Legs tend to put a lot more stress on the nervous system. So training legs once a week versus twice a week for the average person would significantly would be enough for that individual. Upper body muscle groups tend to need a little bit more volume. And you can break it up into like a push and a pull. So like any exercise where you're pushing and then exercise where you're pulling, you can split that up into two different variations. But three days of weight training would
Well, for the
usually
women who
be.
don't want to get bulky on the call, let's address what should they do differently if they don't want to get bigger and bulkier?
Yeah, most women, that's a big stereotype, and a big misconception, because women don't generally, unless you're taking steroids, unless you're competing, you don't generally have enough testosterone in your body to get big and bulky. So if a woman is lifting weights and finding herself getting big and bulky, most likely her diet is off. Her nutrition is probably not where it needs to be, because they just don't have the capacity. I mean, to try to get huge and big and muscular, like good luck. It just doesn't really happen. So the big and the bulky usually comes from like the fluffiness from, too many carbohydrates, just too many calories in your diet. Maybe you're drinking excessively. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. There's too many things that we could point to outside of that. But lifting weights is one of the best ways to build lean muscle tissue, and lean muscle tissue will burn more fat. Now, the other thing to consider is that muscle occupies less volume in the body than body fat. So if we're taking 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat, we're trying to compare that on the body. 5 pounds of fat is the size of a volleyball. 5 pounds of muscle is the size of a baseball. So if you're resistance training, heavy resistance training to build more lean muscle tissue, the weight might be the same, but the volume is going to be much different inside the body. So that bulkiness is usually coming from body fat. And I even see this with guys too. I mean, most people, every single person that comes into my program, I will always take you through a mini cut in a process of trying to lean you down first to try to see what kind of good quality muscle we have in the body before we actually start trying to add lots of muscle tissue right out of the gate. Because I want to be able to see your body composition in a healthy range and not start to pile on some muscle underneath layers of body fat, because it would be much harder to see that anyway. So we usually have a metabolic approach to the beginning of the program in general.
So I'm peppering you through some of this stuff, obviously, because of the format. It's usually a little bit
Right.
longer. One of the things I also notice is when people think they go on a diet, I observe that they'll eat a flavored yogurt with granola on top and snack on some veggie chips, right? And that's and
Horrible.
there, yeah. So maybe you could talk, maybe we could move a little bit to the nutrition piece about some of the do's and don'ts there, because I see people snacking on a big old protein bar and thinking that they're
Yeah.
doing something good for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, listen, nutrition, to be honest, I think it'd be maybe more effective to jump in. If anybody has any specific questions regarding nutrition, it might be helpful just to kind of jump into like a Q&A right now and have some people just sort of fire away questions they have around nutrition. You might be able to get more specific. But just to touch on a couple things that you said, like protein bars are a big misconception. I mean, protein bars in my world, the place that protein bars have is like they're there for emergencies. Like if I'm on a road trip, if I'm on a flight somewhere traveling, like if I'm going out for a hike somewhere, if I know I'm going to be somewhere where it's going to be very difficult to get a meal for like 3 or 4 hours, I'll bring a protein bar. But that is like those are few and far between. The reality is that there's still it's still processed food, and it's still not a great source of meal replacement and protein. So, but they can be helpful just to help give you some energy if you need it, because your body's getting some nutrients. It's just not high quality nutrients, and a lot of times most people's guts have a very difficult time digesting and breaking down the structure of a protein bar. It just see it
And
all
so
the
why
time. So.
why are those, and why is like a flavored yogurt with granola on top? Why is that a bad idea?
Well, I mean, look, it depends on what kind of yogurt. If you're talking about sheep yogurt or goat yogurt, I don't have
I'm
an issue
not.
with that, right? If you're talking about like Yoplait fruit on the bottom, I mean, we're just first off, a lot of people who have any issues with dairy, regular cow milk, dairy, who might be lactose intolerant, you're going to certainly see some issues there with the lactose inside of the yogurt. But the granola, you're blending basically granola is a bunch of it's just sugar. Carbohydrates convert to sugar in general anyways. If you're taking a bunch of granola that's been baked in sugar and coated with sugar, it's just not a great combination. I mean, I can get I can get deep into the science of it all, but you're basically inhibiting your body's ability to burn more fat when you're dumping a bunch of sugar and carbohydrates, especially processed carbohydrates, into the body that aren't necessarily going to give your body the ability to use what you want for energy. Which, if you're trying to lean down and burn fat, we want your body to burn more fat stores for energy versus more sugar.
So I'm
So,
asking for some of the people, because I know a lot of the people that are on this call, when it comes to dieting, a lot of times what they'll do is, yogurt, but then it's confusing, right? Am I supposed to eat? Am I not supposed to eat? And
right,
finding that people are overeating when they
right.
do eat, and they're undereating. So how many times a day should they eat? And is that different for everybody?
I mean, how many times a day you should eat is kind of different for everybody. I'd say a good rule of thumb would be to split up meals and snacks, anywhere between 3 to 4 hours apart. Like if you're not somebody who's on a very specific plan, 3 to 4 hours, every 3 to 4 hours having a meal or a snack is a good way to sort of give your body what it needs so it stays in protein synthesis, which means your body is using protein to partition it towards building muscle. Right. So if you're going outside of that 4 hour window of not consuming any food, your body starts to go into protein breakdown, where it's going to start going into catabolic state, where it's going to start biting into the muscle to get its energy and get its resources. So you want to keep your body more in protein synthesis as much as possible. So, you know, a, I personally eat anywhere between every 2 to 3 hours. Average person, 3 to 4 hours. A 4 hour would sort of be like the tipping point before you start to go into catabolic state versus anabolic. Um, but I think just touching back on the snacks, you say people generally go to like these eat yogurt and granola. It's an easy go to, but the thing is, when you're trying to get healthy and when you're trying to reach a specific goal with your body, you've got to get your mind away from just convenience, and you got to think about, what does my body actually need to achieve the objective that I'm going after? And in that case, it usually requires you to be a little bit more prepared and organized. So that means you have to meal prep a little bit more. You have to like spend some time getting involved with like buying food, cooking food, putting it together so you have good healthy options available, or knowing like what restaurants in your area have the foods that are compliant with whatever meal plan is being directed towards you to help you achieve your goal. But the lack of organization and preparation is usually what lends people to yogurt and granola, stopping for fast food, not eating, skipping meals. that's generally the issue. It's not that they don't want to or don't know. They're just not prepared and organized. So for me, I find that, if you're not falling in love with the process of getting really healthy, then it becomes annoying and it becomes frustrating and it
It's
becomes
confusing.
arduous.
It's
It
confusing
becomes
is what it is.
confusing.
Yeah.
So really, one of my favorite quotes from Blake Griffin, NBA player, you got to fall in love with the process of becoming great. And for me personally, like I've been able to do this at a high level for 30 plus years and keep my body in great health and great shape for 30 plus years because I just love the process, you know, just like, again, I'll attribute it to your careers. You guys are out there, you're crushing it in real estate. Like that is not for every single person. You got to love real estate. You got to love the hustle and you got to love that grind. And you got to love, going through all the fluctuations of the market and the highs and the lows and taking that ride and just digging in to really be successful and to stick it out in this industry the same, but your health is something that is a you job and it's with you for the rest of your life. And so, most people don't usually start to become passionate about that process until they come across some sort of health crisis. And then all of a sudden they perk up and start to take it seriously. My aim and my objective, especially if I get on calls like this, is to have conversations that spark a little something within you to say, hey, I'm not going to wait and react to something catastrophic. I'm going to prevent something that's catastrophic. You either pay for your health or you pay for your illness. And I can tell you right now, it's way easier to pay for your health than it is to pay for your illness. And so
Kathy,
that's my focus and my objective in what I do. And I think just getting a little bit more specific might be even helpful right now, just to kind of dive into some questions. I think a
Sure.
few people
Kathy, go
have some
ahead.
Kathy has one.
questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Hey,
Um,
Kathy, how are you?
good, good. I have a question. It's actually a kind of a 3 or 4 pronged question about the blood work. Is that, I guess the first part of this is that the first place to start to see what your needs are in terms of blood work? Who do you go to? What are we looking for? You go to a physician, your physical once a year, and they take just basic stuff. I don't
Yeah,
think that's what you mean by blood work. So yeah,
no.
if you could expand on, when, how, what.
Yeah, so great question, and your mind is in the right space. Sounds like you've had some experience, obviously, with the physician and trying to get some blood work, and it just seems like arbitrary. Like,
Mhm.
you know, white blood cell looks fine. Like, I mean, they check a few boxes of some basic blood work, and at the end of the day, when you're getting basic blood work, a lot of the parameters are so wide, the ranges of certain things are so wide, especially when it comes to hormones, that unless you're like bottomed out, then they're really not looking to make any moves or make any adjustments. So I think there's several different tests you can get involved with, you could take. I mean, you could do a gut test to kind of check your gut
Yeah.
microbiome, to see for any like food sensitivities. There's tests that you could check to see like heavy metals, testing for like mercury, lead, arsenic. You're checking for any of those. And then you can do a full hormone panel where you're doing all of your basic blood work that your primary care physician would do, but you want to go levels deeper to look at thyroid, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. You want to look at what's going on with your IGF-1, like your insulin growth factor 1. You want to see what's happening with um, uh, your C-reactive protein, your inflammation markers, homocysteine, right? So I think there's a lot of things in there that you could ultimately test. But from a beginner standpoint, I think getting a full hormone panel would be the most effective because from a nutrition standpoint, some of these tests are a little bit all over the place. I don't think they're quite as accurate. Meaning, like if you got a gut microbiome test, they're going to come back and say, "Yeah, you've got a sensitivity to tomatoes, and you got a sensitivity to, anchovies." How is that necessarily really going to help you in the
Mhm.
big picture, right? Because that's the least of your concerns at that point. It's really we got to think about what's going on with the body, like how the way I'm feeling, the way I'm looking, how my body's functioning, that has more to do with what's going on hormonally. Now, there is a feedback loop, meaning that a lot of the hormones can be impacted by the gut. The gut is sort of like the nucleus of everything. right? But I think more importantly, you want to get a bigger picture, because if we did a full blood panel and a hormone panel, we saw that your thyroid was way off. Well, we can have, the doctors can help adjust to improve and correct the thyroid dysfunction. But then the next step would be also, let's address the gut microbiome and let's address the diet. And if you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing, and humbly, that was a humble sort of pitch on what I do. I'd already be making adjustments to your meal plan and nutrition that would probably eliminate us even having to do a gut microbiome test, because the nutrition that I focus on is all anti-inflammatory. And there are a lot of things that are very gentle and easy on the gut from a general population standpoint, things that I already understand. Everything that I do is to help support the gut microbiome and reduce inflammation in the gut. So I'd be more concerned about looking at a hormone panel more so than I would at a gut panel.
What kind of a doctor should I be going to? A functional doctor? I don't want to go the regular route. I've got to go someplace else. So what kind of a doctor would you recommend that would understand that language of what we're looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, a hormone replacement therapist or a functional medicine doctor, like either one of those two, where
Yeah.
like an HRT doc or a functional medicine doctor would absolutely understand that. Um, I mean, absolutely would understand that and would have a much more aggressive approach towards addressing the autoimmune disorder, right? And a lot of times the autoimmune disorder too, again, I will say that the autoimmune disorder oftentimes stems from things like high levels of inflammation in the body,
Correct.
right? High
Yeah.
levels of inflammation that's being affected by the body is coming through nutrition,
Right.
right? But also lifestyle. So I don't know like what stress is like. I don't know what your sleeping patterns are like. I mean, there's a lot of things that attribute to high cortisol in the body that
Hmm.
you may not feel like somebody who's like stress pulling your hair out, but there might be stress on the nervous system because you're constantly like in your head working, thinking, grinding, then at work, then you come home and then you got stuff you're working on at home, and then maybe you're getting like 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours of good sleep and not like great quality sleep, so your body doesn't have a chance to rest and restore. So that keeps your body in a sympathetic tone where it's fight or flight constantly. And eventually, if you've been doing that for a long time, your body starts to adapt to it to where it feels like normal for you, because you're able to withstand and endure high levels of stress in a high sympathetic tone. But realistically, your body is not well in that space. And so the body will respond at attacking itself and find and attacking things that are showing up in the body that aren't meant to be there, as a way to defend it and protect it. And then you
Okay.
start to suffer from other diseases and disorders because of things like that with that high level of inflammation. So addressing the inflammation would be a big, big help for you in particular right out of the gate to work with your autoimmune. But a good hormone replacement therapist or functional medicine doctor would be able to help you there. Where do you live?
Connecticut.
Connecticut? I went
Fairfield County.
to I played hockey at Quinnipiac. That's where I went to school.
Oh, okay. My husband was a goalie.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're not too far. I wasn't too far from you at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean there should be some, Connecticut, New York, like not too far from you.
Yeah.
There should be some good
Fine
doctors in
wine.
those areas. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious for everybody else on the call, is that the first place that someone should do
I
to
mean,
get the
I think
scope?
everybody should be doing blood work.
Okay.
Everybody should be doing blood work, because at the end of the day, how you feel and how you look is important.
Hmm.
But your blood work is king. It's going to tell you everything, right? I
Right.
mean, that's
Okay.
we try to keep ourselves in a proactive state. You want to get the blood work done.
That's what I send Chris at this point. If we have a conversation about adjustments to my plan, I send him my blood work. He looks at pictures and I send him my blood work, and that's how we make adjustments to supplementation and diet.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What else?
Gotcha.
Any other
Somebody's
questions
got to
on here?
jump in here with some of their nagging questions on, because there's got to be people on this call that are doing things that they think are helping themselves and maybe not helping. Go ahead, Dean.
Chris. All right. So I been listening around the horn with a couple different people, the Breckos of the world and everyone else. And love to get your take on that. But I've been taking these liver pills recently.
Okay.
Okay, from that Liver
What
King
pills?
dude.
Liver King.
Liver King. I've been going down this rabbit hole, and then I was like,
Wow.
and hold on, in the back of my mind, I keep saying Chris is gonna, as soon as I hire him, he's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, 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 no. And I know I'm like a Fizbo right now, and I'm doing it on my own. I get it. I'm sorry. I've really been like, no, I know my shit. Anyway, so, but I noticed that I have literally zero effect when I've taken 5 of those liver pills. One of those liver pills, it doesn't do anything for me, and I don't feel how
But
important is the
What do you, what do you
first
want to
off,
feel?
I'd say, why were you taking the liver pills?
okay.
Secondly, what were you expecting to feel? And how are you able to measure whatever you're expecting
I'm
to get from it?
constantly wanting to get to a feeling. Talk about being like feeling a certain way
Yeah.
when I run long distance. That feeling when you do like when I run marathons, I've trained for that stuff. I get into this sense of like nothing can stop me. I feel like just a complete savage my entire day. I don't feel that same way with weightlifting. I don't feel that same way, and maybe I'm just doing it wrong, clearly, but I just don't feel that same like oomph that I get from running. And I want to have that throughout my day on a consistent basis. And I thought liver was going to do it based on all the marketing they were doing. So it's like, that's where we are. I
But
wanted to get your thoughts.
have you ever had your liver tested?
No.
No, just out of curiosity. Yeah.
Rich is laughing.
I
you know,
mean, look, at the end of the day, the thing that you'll get mostly from the pills that he's selling is you're gonna get a lot of iron, a lot of basic minerals from those liver pills, right? There's nothing magic about them. Um, I wouldn't expect you to feel anything necessarily there, but this is a good example of people taking supplements that they may not necessarily need. And what happens when you start to go down that path is you got to remember that anything you take especially as a supplement, your body has to break it down and decode it to be able to then transport it to whatever reason for whatever process that it's trying to use. So when you start putting a ton of inputs into the body, it starts to take away some resources from your body gets very confused if it doesn't know exactly what it's trying to do and what that supplement is trying, or if it even needs it. So you start to pull some resources away. So unless you really needed something like that, then I would say, what is Liver King saved my life? Millmeister. I didn't know he was on this call. Um, yeah, unless you really needed it, I wouldn't have had you take it. I mean, I would say you haven't done any damage to your body from taking it. I don't think, unless, I don't know what the quality of his products are. Sometimes in the supplement world, these products they don't contain everything they say they do. And there's some contamination in some of the stuff. I don't know. I mean, you've seen all the
Dean,
controversy with Liver King. So
Dean, don't you want to ask Chris about your exercise routine? Don't you want to ask him about what your current plan is? Do you have any questions on that?
sure. You want me to? I mean,
Yeah, do it.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
right.
break it. I mean, I'm curious. You said I don't feel that oomph that I'm looking for that you get with running. Like,
Yeah.
explain that a little bit more. Like, what is that oomph that you're looking for?
So
Is
it's
it
just,
is it a physicality, like a certain look that you're looking for? Is it a feel that you're looking for?
it's a focus. That I'm talking about is a focus in my day. Yeah.
Okay, I'd be willing to bet that you're probably not approaching weight training in a way that's commensurate with achieving that because. And maybe because you already have some preconceived notion about like I don't really feel it that way, so you go into it kind of arbitrarily with your training, and then
Totally.
don't get that achieved result. But like for example, you know, whenever I'm working when any program I develop for a client, the only way you can progress and build muscle is you have to progressively overload movements and exercises, meaning you have to keep adding weight to the exercise or finding a way to make the exercise more challenging and more difficult so that the body is forced to have to get stronger. The body is forced to adapt. But on top of that, having really good biomechanics before you even start to progressively overload any exercises is absolutely critical. Because the main goal, the only way you can build muscle is you have high degrees of mechanical tension in the targeted muscle that you're trying to train. And you have to train that muscle very close to failure. Meaning like it's got to hit a critical point where it's like it can't really lift much more. And so, and that goes for anybody between 30s and 60s. I mean, I have clients in their 60s that train close to failure with their weights. Now, the weight they're lifting might be a little different. It might not be as heavy as something that I lift or that somebody else who's much stronger than me would lift, because it's all relative to the individual. But there's a real science to how you perform an exercise and how you actually train in terms of rep ranges and the weight that you're using and the intention of how you're moving that weight that dictates the result. And so I would say 100% of the people that come into my program, even people who have trained for years, have never really understood, because they don't study the biomechanics of the movement to understand how to effectively apply mechanical tension to a targeted muscle in their exercise. A lot of women will come in chasing bigger glutes. They want to get a big butt. And they're doing all these exercises, but they're performing the exercises wrong. Their butts aren't getting bigger, but their legs are getting bigger. And then they're frustrated because their quads and their hamstrings are getting big, and they don't want big legs. They want a bigger booty. You know what I mean? And
I'm
so,
trying to get a smaller booty.
hey, that's possible too. But yeah, I mean, I think again, to try to take the athletic position on it, you think like an athlete. When you understand the goal and the intention of movements and exercises and why something has been designed specifically for you and what you're trying to achieve, and you apply that in strength training, and then you think about, I want to perfect this movement, and then I want it every week. I'm working to progressively overload this movement. You start to get this stimulus when you're in the gym of really mastering the art of this exercise, and then building more strength and seeing that progress. Those are things that kind of give you that that excitement, versus like, let me just go in and do another set of bicep curls, or I'm in a rush. Here's a chest press. I'll just go over here and just, how come my chest isn't growing? Well, the seat was too high. You're not even really pushing with your chest. You're pushing with your shoulders. You didn't even push to failure. You were just kind of going through the movements and the motions. Like, what are you expecting? There's literally a science, and most people undermine that science. They think just because I'm at the gym and I'm doing some exercises that I should see this growth, because it's more than what I've been doing before, which is just kind of sitting around doing nothing. And it doesn't work like that. The body needs specific cues in order to respond. And so running, it's like, okay, man, I want to run 10 miles, lace them up and just go. It's easy for you to be like, oh, I'm at mile 7. This sucks. Like, let me just push a little bit harder. Like, there's not a lot to it. You just have to push yourself a little more mentally to run a little further and hang in there with a little bit more endurance. Weight training, if you get really, really intentional with your goal, and then you're aligned with a coach who can really teach you about how to achieve that goal quickly with good, proper biomechanics to, one, keep you safe, but also keep it effective, and then teach you how to build strength. There's nothing like building strength, man. I'm telling you, like, nothing feels better and gets people more jazzed than when you can actually feel strong in your body and feel that strength come on. But if you're just going to the gym and just lifting weights and you don't have a goal of like, okay, last week I was lifting 135, this week I'm going for 140. And you hit that 140, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Dude, you're like coming out shot out of a cannon, ready to go crush your day. What's up, Dean? Why are you still on top? Dude, I just hit a PR today in the gym, man. I'm ready to go. Let's go, baby. Like, you're there. But I don't think you're probably approaching your training that way.
No, probably not. And Chris, do you have time for one more question from the audience, if they have one?
I can go as long as you guys want to go. I don't know if this is a limited call, but I can go as long as you guys want to go. So
I have a question if no one else does. I don't want to take up the
I think
time
I just saw, did somebody else?
I think someone just commented.
Oh, Danny Mandillo. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Anyone else who has a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah,
What's up,
this is
Ray?
Ray. Yeah. Hi.
How come we can't see you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go, Big Ray.
Where's your
Ask
camera,
away,
boy?
buddy.
Yeah.
Inflammation.
So could you just give us the basic things that we have to do, like, as a regular person, what are the things that you need to, like, you need to exercise, like, build up your like muscles or, you know, getting more strength or something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think look, it's kind of hard to generalize in terms of what exercises are the most important for a general person, like what exercise to be training. But I would say the key pillars of what you'd want to focus on is make from a nutrition standpoint, you want to try to hit at least 1 gram of protein per pound of your target body weight. So I weigh 100 I'm like between 195 and 200 pounds. I'm 6 feet. So if I want to maintain 200 pounds of at 10% body fat, I need to be targeting 200 grams of protein per day minimum. That is the goal. So I have to think about and sparse out my meals. I know that a 6 ounce chicken breast has about 42 grams of protein. On average, there's about 7 grams of protein per
Okay.
ounce. So a 6 ounce chicken breast is 42 grams of protein. A scoop of whey protein is 25 grams of protein. So throughout the day, I'm calculating and adding up my protein to know I want to maintain 200 pounds. Now, if I was trying to get to 185, then my body effectively really only needs about 185 grams of protein to maintain that lean body composition. And I can cut my protein down. So depending on what your target goal is, just concentrate
Mhm.
on trying to get your protein within 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, target body weight. That would be number one on nutrition. On the training, on the exercise side, I would make sure you're getting 3 days a week minimum of resistance training in the gym. And you don't need more than an hour of time in the gym for resistance training, but make sure you're focused on your resistance training 3 days a week. If you're in the gym doing cardio a couple days a week, 20 to 30 minutes max of some sort of high intensity interval training. You could do it on a bike where you go for 30 seconds really, really fast, and then you slow down for 30 seconds. So you follow that interval for 2 to 3 days a week in the gym. And then you want to get a couple rest and recovery days where literally, you could do some stretching and some mobility work, or just go for some light walks, outside on your rest and recovery days, but very minimal
Okay.
activity. You want to give your body a chance to rest and recover. It needs time to restore. So that's
Okay.
critical during that phase. But I
Yeah.
think those would be probably the best rules of like thumb for general.
The things I was surprised about, a couple of
Okay.
things that
Thank
you
you.
might find interesting is you had me do way less cardio, more resistance training. Two, I was also surprised, and I know a lot of people are afraid of ground beef, and I implemented a lot more grass-fed ground beef in my diet.
Grass-fed ground beef.
Grass-fed ground beef. And the other thing that surprised me was that we really weren't exactly focused on the amount of calories. We were focused on food quality and then just choosing exactly what we were going to eat throughout the day. Because I was fixated on trying to hit a calorie goal. And not to say that's unimportant, but what I was surprised by is what we focused on was exactly what to eat, less cardio, and the quality of the food that I was eating, probably even more so than the amount.
100%.
All right.
Is there a correlation between the brain and the gut by any chance?
100%. There's a what's called the vagus nerve, vagus, not Vegas like we go and get bottle service and party at Mike Ferry's conference. But the vagus nerve is the gut brain superhighway. So that's why I was saying in this call that the gut is absolutely critical to the overall process and one of the most important pieces, because if you've got high levels of inflammation in your gut, that some of the symptoms that show up as high levels of inflammation or gut dysbiosis are brain fog, chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression. I mean, it leads to all sorts of disorders. I mean, so much so that I've seen people who have been put on anti-anxiety medication and antidepressant medications. And the reality is that they're not really a depressed individual or an anxious individual. They've got some inflammation in the gut that's driving some of this nervous system response. And so you clean up the gut and get the inflammation down, and you start to see all of these symptoms go away, right? Because you put somebody on anti-anxiety medication or depression medication, there are a host of negative downstream side effects. And imagine if you got put on a medication when in reality, all we need to do is clean up your nutrition. You know, like that's an easy fix because food can either be medicine or food can be poison. And that's why I focus so much on nutrition, especially in all of my programs. My meal plans are all anti-inflammatory based. It's to drive down gut inflammation because you get the gut in a good place. Everything else, for the most part, starts to be put in a position where you can really optimize and benefit from the things that you're looking for cognitively, from a metabolic standpoint, right? Your metabolism starts to work more efficiently. And then from a digestive standpoint, being able to like break down nutrients, absorb nutrients properly. I mean, there's so much to that. Somebody who has high levels of inflammation, aside from any type of cognitive disorder that you might be dealing with, if you got high levels of inflammation and you're consuming food, you're barely getting any of that nutrients to absorb because a lot of that inflammation is blocking that. You got food just passes right through you, you know, and then you get symptoms of bloat, distension, diarrhea, the list goes on. So yeah, is there something going on specific for you that made you think of that question? Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Richard.
I don't know how that happened. All right.
There you go.
No, I was mainly asking, was it L-methylia folate? You know what that is?
L-methylfolate, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a correlation between that and the gut?
I mean, methylfolate is basically just an iron supplement, right? I guess, did you pick up this one from Gary Brecka?
No. I actually don't, you can disregard him. So 10 months ago, I decided to take it more seriously. So I'm on TRT now. So I have the whole list. So I analyze all the blood work now. So one of the
Good.
things that was correlated, what he said was that triggering the gut, because I would have a high protein, I would work out consistently. DVN, I just did that 75-day workout.
Mhm.
Everything. So cut drastic weight, but I can't seem to cut that. I think I'm over cardio and over working out. And
Well, let's talk about, I mean, look, 75 hard. I mean, and DVN knows I'm not a big fan of it because one thing you don't get in that 75 days is you don't get rest and recovery really. It's 75 days going aggressive, right?
zero.
So if you don't get that rest and recovery, you're pushing your body is, in order for you to get really great results in terms of building muscle, burning fat, you've got to try to keep your body in an anabolic state as much as possible. There's anabolic and there's catabolic. So anabolic, a term for anabolic, to make it simple, is repair and grow. Catabolic is basically like tear and break down. And so if you're constantly in this tear and breakdown state, right? 75 hard, wake up, run, workout, run, like 75 days back to back to back to back to back. I don't care if your food is perfect. I don't care if your sleep is perfect. You have no days in there where you're resting and recovering. You know, I'm 49 years old. I've been doing this for 30 years. I train 4 days a week. That's it. I get 3 rest days in there. And those rest days, I'm either like doing a 20-minute like zone 2, just slow walk around the neighborhood. I do mobility. I'll go get a massage. All the things that bring down those cortisol and stress on my body and help to keep me in an anabolic state so I can repair and grow. Otherwise, you're just constantly tearing down, right? And by the way, high levels of cortisol also steps on testosterone. So even though you're using TRT, you can actually lower your testosterone potential because cortisol is being pushed so high that it's blocking your body's ability to use its maximum amount of testosterone that you're putting in. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes complete sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. So for someone like you, I would recommend that you think of more about how you're structuring your week in terms of training days and rest and recovery days. And I guarantee you watch a complete change if you watch in 1 month, watch what your body can do with throwing in a couple rest days throughout the week. You know, even 2 would just be amazing. You know, if you can get 3 rest days and like be really effective with your other 4 days of training. And that comes down to programming, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
going to train 4 days a week, you got to know how to program that properly. But 3 rest days and just throttling back a little bit so you can let your body get into repair and growth mode a little bit more, man, you probably start to see much more of the benefits of your TRT.
Okay. And do you suggest less cardio? Because every day would be obviously a cardio session mixed into there.
I mean, I would say like on your rest days, like it depends. I wouldn't be doing any cardio on your strength training days.
Okay.
And I would, and on your cardio days, you know, what are you doing for cardio on your cardio days? Or do you not have that broken up? It's like always cardio and strength training.
Right now, it's always been cardio. It's always been strength training, a solid 45, and then at least 30 to 40 minutes stairmaster, elliptical,
Right after the workout,
right after.
dude, cut that out completely.
Yeah.
Like,
Really.
I'd be so excited to hear how amazing you feel even after a week of breaking that up. Strength train on strength training days. Have if you how many days a week you think you can get away with? Could you just get 3 days a week in and be good strength training?
Yeah, I could easily break it up to
3
40.
days a week of strength training, 2 days of no more than 30 minutes of cardio, 2 days a week, and then 2 days of rest. I would love to hear a report back from you in a month of following a protocol like that. I guarantee. And here's the thing. You got to get your diet tight because you're pulling down the cardio, which means you got to rely on your nutrition to maintain a little bit better and move the needle more in your body composition. People who do tons and tons of cardio also too, like they will do that who want to be a little sloppier and leaner on their diet, which the offset is that you're trading a ton more stress on your body to have a little bit more pleasure with food, as opposed to deloading the stress on your body and having a little bit more discipline with your food. You probably feel and look way better.
Chris, hit them with your contact info in case anybody wants to chat with you more about their personal plan before anybody jumps off.
Yeah. If you want to just take down my email, it's Chris, CHRIS at P as in Peter, M as in Mary, B as in boy, life.com. So pmblife.com.
All right, I just put it in
And-
there, and then there's one more
Thanks, brother.
question. He says,
Thanks, Chris.
Mary Lee just asked how to improve insulin resistance.
Yeah. So, Mary, are you there? Can I talk to you?
Yes,
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So let me ask you, are you diabetic, pre-diabetic, anything going on there?
That's a good question. I don't know.
What made you ask that question?
Uh, because because you browse and and then you start seeing like things and then TikTok and that's how I feel like maybe I have a insulin resistance
And because why?
because I feel like I feel like I'm gonna go to sleep every time right after I eat.
Do you eat do you eat carbs with every meal? Do you eat noodles and rice? Is that a big part of your diet?
Yes.
That's it right there. So I would look, I'm not anti-carb at all,
Oh,
but when it comes to eating carbohydrates, it's choosing the right types of carbs and also the right quantity at the right time. So if you're finding yourself really, really tired, you're getting these massive insulin spikes and then insulin crashes because especially from noodles, from eating a lot of noodles as well.
right.
So like pasta, right? So
Mhm.
I would reduce your carb intake significantly and try to keep your carbs a little bit closer towards, if you're finding yourself sleepy throughout the day, I would put your carbs a little closer towards nighttime.
Oh,
So, for example, like breakfast, no carbs, lunchtime, no carbs, and then put some carbs in with dinner. Like if you want to have some noodles or some rice, I mean, ideally, perfect world, potatoes are one of the best carbohydrates you can have. Organic potatoes. Potatoes are known as also, they can be a resistant starch, which means when you consume the potato, it only digests partially in the gut, I mean, in the intestines. The rest of it goes undigested down into the lower colon, which is where all of our bacteria live. And so the good bacteria feed off of that potato and start to colonize and produce more good bacteria. So potatoes can actually serve as a prebiotic for the gut. But if you're going to have noodles, you're going to have rice from time to time, fine, whatever. I would put more of your carbs towards the evening because that will actually help induce a deeper sleep for you. Right. So you sleep deeper, sleep better, have more energy during the day, eating more proteins, vegetables, and a little bit of fat. So like a good lunch, for example, would be like, any type of protein, grass-fed meat, some wild-caught fish, or, if you want to do like a pasture-raised chicken breast on top of a salad with some avocado and some olive oil, that would be a really good lunch. That fat and that protein will help give you lots of energy. You can use that fat from the olive oil and from the avocado also as part of your energy resource, but it won't pull down your insulin. Now, if you find yourself getting a little bit sleepy, couple ways you can get increased insulin sensitivity, you can go for a walk. 20-minute walk will increase insulin sensitivity. Adding a little dash of cinnamon to some of your food can increase insulin sensitivity. Drinking a little bit of apple cider vinegar, or putting a little like a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar mixed in with some water, are things you can do to help increase insulin sensitivity. There's a supplement out there, R-lipoic acid, 300 milligrams once a day, increases insulin sensitivity. But all of these things don't matter if you're just eating carbs all day long. So it makes it very, very difficult to have these things be effective if you're not, incorporating good nutritional habits. So your problem of being constantly tired and fatigued is most likely coming from your carbohydrate intake and how you're eating, the types of food you're eating. That helpful?
Yes.
So I would say if you're going to have more carbs throughout the day, if you can get a 20-minute walk in after your food, after you eat, it will increase your insulin sensitivity. Your body will burn through some of those sugars and give you a little bit more energy. So that would be a little bit more effective for you. But I would say the main focus should be to cut back down on your carb intake and move more of your carbs to dinner. Don't overload carbohydrates at dinner, a small portion, at dinner. But I would increase your protein and your fat during the day and lower your carbs and push your carbs more towards dinner. You might find a better pattern.
Gotcha. Thank
That
you.
helpful? Yeah, of course. What do we have
Chris.
on here? Sweet potato, regular potato. I saw the question. Yeah. So who had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, are there any books or anything that we should be, or YouTube videos that we should be watching that you have to get us started?
Yeah, I do have a book, but it's not based as much around this. If you go to Amazon, I have a book called The 5x2 Method. It's more about the 5x2 method. Talks more about ways to de-stress and deload your nervous system in your body using a technique that I coined of tapping into your five senses at two times of the day, once when you wake up and before you go to bed. I don't have any books that talk so much about this content, but this is look, I build 90-day, I work on a 90-day basis. It's 3-month retainers in my program. If you come into my program, what you could expect is a full meal plan, full training program, a full supplement regimen. I can work with your doctors and help you analyze all your blood work and work side by side with your doctors to help sort of advocate and so offset any type of inaccuracies that I think that they may be missing from traditional medicine practices. And then there's a lot of stuff that we do inside of the training program. I have a couple apps that I use that help facilitate and make this process very, very smooth. There's a lot of lifestyle coaching, a lot of mindset coaching that goes into it. I have a lot of the clients that I work with travel a ton for work. So understanding and knowing how to make these adjustments alongside of travel, or whether you're going out to restaurants, for entertainment with clients, teaching you how to navigate menus. There's a lot that goes into my program. That's a real high level education of me really teaching my clients. My goal is to inform you and educate you and teach you so that this becomes part of your whole new way of thinking, acting, being, and doing that you can carry with you for a lifetime. And that's very, you know, that's it, that adjusts and changes for each individual. And certainly as we have different challenges that come up in our lives, knowing how to make those pivots and adjustments is critical. And so, you know, my aim is also to do these, you know, this is my first time meeting with this group in particular, but I like to serve in these groups on a quarterly basis. So if there were some tidbits in here that seemed helpful for you, it'd be great that you just go off and practice some, just pick 1 or 2 things to practice out of what you might have learned today. And then when I come back next quarter, that we, you know, revisit it and kind of check in and see. But otherwise, if you're interested in scheduling a consult to learn more about the program and see if it's a right fit for you, you can just email me directly, and then we can talk further via the email and look into that. But I'd be very curious to hear how things go for you with your autoimmune disorder, because I'd be willing to bet that there's probably some stuff hormonally that's off, but I bet nutritionally could resolve some of the things that you're dealing with, in particular as it relates to your autoimmune disorder currently.
I agree. All right. Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Is that all? Any remaining last questions before we get running? I burn more calories. Yes, I agree. More cardio. Oh, somebody said, Robert, are you still here?
Yes.
You had a question, sweet potato
Yeah.
or regular potato?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, either one is fine. I mean, if you're looking for faster energy from a potato, you'll get it faster from a white potato because it's a white starch. It'll just, you know, the sweet potato tends to have a little bit more fiber. It's a slower response, but either one is fine. I like both. I use them both.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. It's great
Yeah,
class.
yeah,
Great class.
my
Appreciate it.
pleasure. My pleasure. Any
What's
other
your
questions
email
you have
again?
there, Robert?
I'm sorry.
Any other questions you have related to
No,
that?
that was really, you know, what you thought was better, or if there was a difference.
Gotcha.
All right. Thanks again.
My
What's your
pleasure.
email again?
It's Chris, CHRIS, at P as in Peter, M as in Mary, B as in boy, LI, F as in Frank, E as in Edward.com. So pmblife.com.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. My pleasure, Ray. All right, guys, I'm going to be tuning out unless there's any other questions. This was great. I appreciate your time. And hopefully there's some good takeaways in here for you all.
Yeah. It
All
helped
right.
us. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Be healthy. We'll talk soon.